Salut class. Today we're going to talk about many different ways to make a sentence negative. Remember to pause and rewind the video as you need to, and I'm sorry but I'm feeling a little under the weather, so that might be why I don't sound like myself today. So let's begin. To make a sentence negative, we usually use two parts, ne and then another word. What we've studied so far is ne pas and ne jamais, and you've gotten very good at those, but your goal for today is to learn a lot of different expressions and how to use them in different tenses so you can really expand on what you'd like to be able to say. In written language, you always use the ne. But sometimes, when you visit France or the music videos that we watch in class, sometimes the ne isn't there. And that's because in conversation, you'll oftentimes not hear it. But when we practice in class, we'll always use the ne. Take a second and look over this list of the different expressions, what they mean in English, and the words that they replace to make them negative. Take a second to pause the video and focus on what they mean so that way as we move forward in the video you'll be able to use them correctly. So let's talk about placement. You've gotten very good with using the ne and the pas. So in these examples, you can use many of the different expressions from the previous page. You can replace the pas with them, but not all of them. And that's what we're going to discuss in the future. Where are they placed and what are the exceptions given certain circumstances? So take a second and just look over some of these different examples with simple tenses, sentences with infinitives, if it's in the passé composé, and see if you can get a feel for how they're used. You may pause the video if you'd like to take an extra time. So let's look at each one a little bit more specifically and some exceptions when it comes to placement. So with simple tenses, the ne comes before the conjugated verb and any object pronouns if there are any, like the me and the te and the le and so on. The second part of the negative expression comes after the conjugated verb. So you've been doing this with ne pas and ne jamais, but here are three more examples. Il ne voit personne au supermarché. Elle n'entend rien dans le couloir. Ils n'iront nulle part. I'd like you to pause the video and do the practice. When you hit play, the answers will appear. Okay, go ahead and check your answers now. Now let's talk about when there is an infinitive. And again, you've been doing this with ne pas and ne jamais. The ne goes before the conjugated verb, and the second part of the negative expression goes after the conjugated verb. The infinitive is not inside the negative expression. So for example, elle ne va pas étudier ce soir. Nous ne voulons jamais travailler. Again, you've been able to make these sentences for a very long time. So again, pause the video, do the practice. When you press play, the answers will appear. Sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. I hope you did well. Now let's move on. There are exceptions though, and with these infinitive expressions, if you want to use ne personne and ne nulle part, these two expressions go around the entire verb phrase. So the ne comes before the conjugated verb, and the personne or the nulle part comes after the infinitive, so you include the infinitive. So look at these three examples. Notice how the ne comes before the conjugated verb, and the personne and the nulle part comes afterwards. Please take a second to do the practice. Pause the video. When you press play, the answers will appear. How did you do? Now let's talk about the passé composé. Again, you've been doing this since we learned about the passé composé. The ne comes before the helping verb, the avoir or être, and again, any object pronouns that there may be. The second part of the negative comes after the avoir or être, so you do not include the past participle within the negative expression. For example, il n'a rien fait, il ne l'a pas mangé. Like before, pause the video and do the practice. When you press play, the answers will appear. There you go. How'd you do? All right, but again, ne personne and nulle part are a little bit different. In the passé composé, it goes around the entire verb phrase. So the ne comes before the avoir, the être, and the personne comes after the past participle. So take a second to look at these examples. And now pause the video so you can do the practice. When you press play, the answers will appear. All right, moving on. Let's look at some other placement rules because as we found out, there's always things that are slightly different. Ne and aucun, or aucune, is always singular, and it comes before the noun that it modifies. So you have to make sure that it agrees in gender with the noun it modifies. So if it's masculine, it's aucun. If it's feminine, you add the i, so it's aucune. So for example, il a posé des questions. Des questions is feminine, and even though it's plural in the original sentence, we change it to singular and then feminine because question is feminine. Il n'a posé aucune question. Now the second example, you'll see an example of a masculine noun. Elle a quelques livres. So we change livre to be singular again, and it's masculine, so we use aucun. Elle n'a aucun livre. Okay, and you can check out the third sample. All right, pause the video so you can do the practice. When you press play, you'll see your answers. Now with ne, ni, neither nor, you put the ni in front of the word or words that are supposed to be stressed. So in example 1, l'eau n'était ni chaude ni froide, you're putting the ni in front of the adjective that describes the water. The water was neither hot nor cold. Now in the second example, je n'ai ni vu le film ni lu le roman, you're putting the ni in front of the verbs because that's what's being stressed. And then in the third example, elle n'a mangé ni le sandwich ni les fruits, you're putting the ni in front of the noun because that's what's being stressed. So whatever is being stressed with the neither nor, that's where you put the ni in front of that thing. So again, pause the video and do the practice and see how you do. Just like ne, rien, and ne personne can go around a verb like the other expressions, on the other hand, rien and personne may be used as subjects that go before the verb, just like in English. So the ne stays before the conjugated verb, but the rien and the personne now come before. Rien n'est arrivé, personne ne savait prononcer le mot. Rien n'est impossible, personne ne téléphone. So they are now the subject of the sentence, nothing and no one. So now again, pause the video and do the practice and see how you do. Check your answers when you press play. And finally, we'll talk about ne que. Now, ne que isn't exactly a negative expression. What it means is only. So the que comes before the word that's stressed, meaning only. So in example 1, elle n'a acheté que des fraises. What this means is he bought only strawberries. He only bought strawberries. So you put the que before the only thing that he bought. Je ne vais pas le répéter qu'une fois. I am only going to repeat it one time. I'm going to repeat it only one time. So we put the que in front of the one time because that's the thing that's being stressed, the one time. Okay? We'll listen to the song Soul Man, the one that you really like, and you'll hear the ne que in that very frequently. So again, pause the video and see how you do on this last little bit of practice. I hope that you were able to understand these negative expressions. I would suggest studying the meanings of each of them so that way you know what words they'll replace so you can use them more effectively. We'll do lots of practice in class. And please let me know if you have any questions.